Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weiss here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. You know, there's no better person to talk about this than Cameron Herold, by the way. Talk about the COO Alliance. I'm going to introduce Cameron in a second, but past guests include, check out past episode, David Allen of Getting Things Done, Michael Gerber of the E-Myth, and many more. The episode is brought to you by Sweet Process. Cameron, this is what I hear from people. If you've had team members and you ask the same questions or they ask you the same questions over and over, and it's the 10th time you spend explaining it, there probably is some solution that you're missing. Maybe you need a COO, or maybe you need a better COO. But Sweet Process is a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff, save time with existing staff. From talking to the founder, Owen, I realized, I'm figuring, okay, software companies use it, banks use it, but he told me first responder government agencies use it in life and death situations to run their operations, which I thought was pretty cool. So they help you document all repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time, so you focus on growing your team. You could sign up for a 14-day trial. There's no credit card required. Sweet Process, sweet like candy, SWEET process.com. I'm excited. I've been following and reading, and you should consume this person's content whenever you get a chance. Cameron Herold, seriously, I say that because I have personally listened to all of his books. He's founded the COO Alliance. He realized that there was no peer groups for one of the most crucial roles in the company, the COO, the second in command. So he created it, the COO Alliance. And his background, if you don't know, includes 6 years as COO at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. They helped him grow from 2 million to over 106 million, probably more than that. They were operating in 4 countries, 330 cities, named as the number 2 company in Canada to work for. And he believes culture is everything. And he's written numerous books, which I have to mention. Double, How to Double Your Revenue and Profit in 3 Years. Why would someone not read that, Cameron, after that title? I mean, so meetings suck. Turning your most valuable, most loathed elements of business into one of the most valuable. Vivid Vision, a remarkable tool for aligning your business. Free PR, How to Get Chased by the Press. He's done it himself. You co-authored that with Adrian, right?
Yeah, one of my former clients.
And The Miracle Morning for Entrepreneurs that he co-authored with Elrod. Cameron, thank you for joining me.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, Jeremy.
I wanted to start off with...
By the way, I'm also a client of Sweet Process and have been for a few years.
Okay, tell me. I know you have a funny story. We'll talk about in a second what the COO Alliance, but yeah, you have a funny story.
I have a really funny story. So years ago, I'm going to say that it was 6 years ago, I was speaking at an event in Washington, D.C. Cadre was the event. It was a Cadre event by Derek Coburn. And Derek and Mel were holding the event, and there was about 200 CEOs in the audience from the Washington, D.C., Baltimore area. And I was doing a presentation on some of the top content from the book Double. And one of the sections I was talking about was technology tools to scale your company. And I mentioned a tool called Sweet Process for documenting processes. And the entire audience, and I'm not saying like a few people, but the entire group of 200 started to laugh. And I'm like, what's so funny? It's a really good tool. And this guy stands up, he puts his hands up and he goes, my name's Owen. I'm the CEO of Sweet Process. I'm like, fuck, I had no idea. I'd never met the guy. I didn't know the guy. And I had just been a raving fan of his company already, had been telling a lot of my clients to use it, had been talking about it from stages, and there was the guy sitting in the audience. And so
I love that.
Raving fan ever since.
I love it. What is the COO Alliance for people who don't know?
Yeah, so I was a member of the Entrepreneurs Organization for years, and I would show up at these EO events where it was filled with entrepreneurs, filled with CEOs, great learning, great masterminding, great speakers. And when I left 1-800-GOT-JUNK, where I'd been the COO for years, I continued to attend event. So I was a member of EO and then went on to become the COO for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. So I was attending these events and I didn't really fit in. If people were talking about interviewing, the entrepreneurs wanted to talk about it for 5 minutes. I wanted to talk about it for a day and a half. They were talking about metrics or processes. I wanted to dig in and look at them. And I wanted to open up Sweet Process and look at them all together. And they're like, yeah, we need to use Sweet Process. And then they'd go to the next topic. So I realized that there was a huge gap in the market. That was part one. And then the second part was I was coaching these real companies. I've been coaching companies globally now for 13 years, typically 50 to 500 employees. And a few of my clients started talking behind the scenes with each other, and their COOs asked me if I'd get a group of them together. And it was a COO from Acceleration Partners, the COO from Tenuity, which used to be Elite SEM, and the COO from Book in a Box. We're all talking to each other. And they said, well, if we could all get together and talk. And we did. I pulled 10 of our members together and they wanted to keep meeting. So that was the kind of the genesis of the COO Alliance.
So what does it look like now? How do people engage with as a member?
So we created the only network of its kind in the world for the second in command. You need at least 5 million in revenue to be a member. Typically, they've got 30 to 3,000 employees. We don't allow entrepreneurs at all. It's only the second in command. We're title agnostic, so you could be VP operations, president, COO, whatever, as long as you're truly the second in command of the CEO of a growth company. We've got members from 6 countries. We have 5 events per year, and members pick 3 of the 5 events to come to. And each of the events has a theme. In fact, Owen from Sweet Process spoke to the COO Alliance about 2 years ago.
How else do people engage in between the 5 events? Because I know you have a lot of content and other things too.
We have the Second in Command podcast. The Second in Command podcast, we've interviewed Shopify, the Cleveland Indians, Bumble, Zendesk, Bulletproof Coffee, Khan Academy, all kinds of great companies. Poshmark, Orange Theory, we've had their second in commands on. We have a closed private Slack channel for our members where they can contribute and share information and resources and learn from each other during events or in between events. We have a quarterly group call where members get on a group call with each other and share information and resources and talk through issues. We have a closed private Facebook group. And then we have all of our prior speakers. So we have one keynote speaker at every event, and then our members present at all the events, and we have all of those saved in a database for them to watch as well.
I love hearing, Cameron, what happens behind closed doors. And I know you were saying one of the events, someone brought up feeling like a fraud, and I want to talk about how that conversation went, because a lot of people, not just CEOs, but a lot of people in general. So talk about that.
Yeah. So what happened was we were sitting talking at a lunch, and one of the newer members of the COO Alliance, who was running, I'm going to guess it was around a $50 million company. I was asking him, how's it going? He goes, good. He goes, but I really feel like a bit of a fraud in this room. He goes, everybody's so strong. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, to me, he felt like he totally fit in. He goes, no, I feel like I've been faking it. I've been running, second in command here for 5 years. This is the biggest thing we've ever done. And I don't really feel like I know what I'm doing. And everybody here is so smart. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I went back into the room and I said, do you mind if I tell that story? He goes, no, not at all. So I said, I just have a story to tell. But before I do, who in the room feels like a bit of a fraud in their role as the COO? Who feels like they're winging it and trying to figure it out every day? And every single hand went up in the room. Brian's face, he just started to smile. And all of a sudden, he didn't feel like a fraud anymore. Within a second, he no longer felt like a fraud. But you think about the impact that has now on him and his employees and his customers and the revenue and the profit, what he can now bring to the table because of that one shift in his mindset is huge. And now we've got him into an accountability group with other members. They're sharing resources with each other. At our last meeting, he showed up all filled with confidence and sharing ideas, and you can just see the game change that had happened. And this was the COO of, probably 100-person, $50 million.
It's amazing. Yeah. And it basically just shows to him, you're not alone in this. Like, everyone is experiencing that, right?
That's one of the big comments we've had is I finally found my tribe, right? Because they tend to end up going to events that are filled with entrepreneurs and they really don't fit in. And they know that they have different personality profiles, they have different behavioral traits, and they're trying to learn, but they know they don't fit with that group that's there. So they finally kind of feel like they fit.
Yeah, and I suggest people do check out your podcast, and you can go to COOalliance.com in the podcast. But you asked some really good questions, and one of them is, around at least the interview I listened to, Cameron, is navigating the waters with CEO. right? So talk a little bit about maybe suggestions for people, what you've experienced.
So I've been lucky enough to play the second in command role a few times, right? I was the second in command for 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I came into the company as the 14th employee. My best friend was the CEO. He was my best man at my wedding 2 months before I started working for him. We were in a forum. So we knew each other. We were in a business forum together for 4 years, but we really trusted each other right away. So we knew how to work through the conflict. We knew how to work through the trust issues, but we had them. But because the trust was so strong, we could almost have like a marriage discussion with each other, on a daily, weekly basis. And I learned at that point the things that I didn't really recognize as much in prior second in command roles, because I'd had a couple. And then in coaching CEOs, I noticed they were all kind of screwing things up as well. So the COO's job is to make the CEO iconic, right? The COO's job is to make the CEO look good. The CEO's job is to roll out all the good decisions. The COO's job is to roll out all the tough ones. The CEO's job is to shine the spotlight on the COO and go, yeah, he's playing hard ass, but he needs to. He's the good guy. He's helping us out. So their job is to take care of each other. Their job is to argue.
Kind of like a superhero.
It's kind of like a mom and dad in a traditional family. Where mom and dad can fight and argue, but they do it behind the scenes, not around the kids. In front of the kids, they have to be a force. Right. I remember growing up, my mom would say, just wait till your father gets home. I'm like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. Good cop, bad cop. Right. And there were blue jobs and pink jobs. There were his jobs and her. So very much a yin and yang relationship, a trust, a communication. So we work with them on telling the CEO the hard facts, telling the CEO the things that nobody else will tell them, but privately. Right. I was coaching a second in command yesterday, and I said, you need to go to the CEO and tell him he's fucking up. You need to tell him he's doing this wrong. He's communicating and scaring people. He's coming in too bipolar and too manic, and he's creating all these shock waves and ripples, but don't do it in front of anybody. Take him out for coffee. Say, hey, Chris, I just want to tell you the bad stuff, but trust me, it's hard for me to tell you this. He'll really appreciate hearing you. Then
it's a scary thing to do, Cameron. Yeah.
Then I ran behind the scenes and called the CEO and said, hey, by the way, I've got the COO coming to tell you all this stuff. Be open for it because it's going to be really good. He's like, thank you for telling him. I've always wanted to know if he could do that. So I'm helping them build that core relationship. And once they have it, it'll be there, right? It's strong.
So you come in, you work with the full executive team. Part one role that you do.
Depends. Yeah, I'm kind of the CEO whisperer. The publisher of Forbes magazine, when I was working with the CEO of Sprint, called me the CEO whisperer. That I'm kind of sitting in their back pocket and whispering in their ear. I was sitting in Marcelo's boardroom at Sprint, walking through firing some of the key people on his team and top grading some of his employees. And here he is, the 82nd largest company in the United States. I've got no business working inside of an organization like that, but I can kind of see the forest for the trees at times.
The coaching and being around groups is so critical, and you've always been a huge proponent from EO to Genius Network. What's the importance to someone of joining a group? Because in the personality of a COO in general, what do you find? Are they totally gung-ho in joining a group? Are they avoiding group? What do you find generally with the COO personality?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that they're gung-ho in joining the group, but the ones that get into the group, I think, recognize that they no longer have to be the smart person in the room, right? If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And I think there's something that's very kind of powerful and eye-opening about that. Where they can come in and learn. And then the other one is where they can learn and mastermind from people outside of their industry. We often get I go to my industry events, I go to my industry associations. Yeah, but that's all the same people doing all the same stuff. How about if you're a dental organization and you're learning from a shoe company and a manufacturing company and an online book publisher, right? And then you're an online business, but you're learning from offline businesses. There's so much, I call it ideas having sex. You take one idea plus an idea and it spawns into something else.
I don't know who said it, but I remember someone saying it who was originator. They said innovation comes from outside industry, and that's probably why.
Yeah, innovation should be from outside industry for sure.
Yeah. So talk about working through conflict. What are some suggestions for the CEO? Because sometimes they have to make really hard decisions and be honest with people. Are there any factors you see or any tips on that?
I have a model that I teach people on conflict management, and it's a series of 4 statements that you make to start off the discussion. It starts with when you, I feel, I need, how do you feel? So the when you is when you did this, right? When you said what you said in the meeting, or when you showed up late, or when you yelled at your employee, or when you didn't deliver your project on time, right? This is how it made me feel. I felt frustrated. I was pissed off. I felt angry. And it's really getting the feelings out about what the specific situation was. So keeping the conflict very situational. What I need from you is, right? I need for you to be honest. I need for you to show up on time. I need for you to blah, blah, blah. I need for you to live our core values. And then how do you feel about it? And when you address it that way, the other person has nothing to do other than admit it and own it. Because if you're not saying you're always late, well, they're not always late. Sometimes they're actually on time. But when you say at this meeting, when you showed up 7 minutes late, it pissed me off. It felt like it was disrespectful. It felt like you thought your time was more honest than or more important than ours. But if you go, you're always late, you don't care. They go, no, I do care. See all the,
it becomes defensive.
Right. But when you hit the one specific thing, and so I treat conflict management like raising children, right? Do you have kids?
2 kids.
Yeah. So how old are your kids?
6 and 8.
Right. So you do a quarterly performance review with your kids?
No.
Not. Fucking stupid, right? Now, if your 8-year-old does something wrong, when do you tell them?
Immediately. Right. Yeah.
And what do you say? You did this wrong. This is how it's making me feel. This is how you do it properly.
Yeah.
What do you think, Bobby? Right?
Yeah.
And if they do something right, what do? You praise them right away. That's how you grow employees. That's how you deal with conflict. You raise to the conflict. You deal with it. Now, you don't go into Bobby and go, you're always sloppy. You're the worst. Like if Bobby pours juice all over the floor, you're the most useless human being in the world. You're always spilling stuff. I'm not always spilling stuff. I didn't spill, right? You say, Bobby, fuck, I've shown you before how to pour the juice. This is what you did wrong. Right? This is how you do it. So that's how you deal with it.
I love it, Cameron. It seems so obvious when you put it like that, right?
I'm the dumb kid who really struggled with university and with high school, and I had to find the cheat sheets. So I've always seen like all entrepreneurs like a fly trying to get out a window. We're going to work harder till we get out that window, but there's a door that's open. Just go out the door. So I always take the easy systems. And I found that conflict system years ago. It's worked for me forever.
So is that going to be your next book? Or tell me about it.
No, but I write about conflict management in Double Double. One of the chapters of Double Double is about conflict management.
I would love to see it as a separate book. So just saying you like want something else to do.
I do have 2 other books I'm working on. One
okay.
is the CEO, COO relationship, kind of the 2-in-a-box model. And then the second is around the emotional roller coaster of entrepreneurs, the highs and lows of entrepreneurs.
How hard is it for you to write a book?
It's easy now. I've got a relationship with a group called Scribe. Used to be Book in a Box.
Yeah.
And I actually met their co-founders, Zach and Tucker, at a mastermind group that I'm in. They help me do Meeting Suck, Vivid Vision, and Free PR.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get the books out now and to do it in your voice with all my content. And
yeah, they do a great job. And I know Tucker's work too. He's been prolific in authoring things and working with authors too. So culture is big. Key aspects of culture. You have some amazing stories from 1-800-GOT-JUNK. I don't know what would be the best stories about key aspects of culture.
So I'll walk you through. So I'll start with the end and then I'll go back to the beginning. The end is in my last year at the company, or the year before I left, we ranked as the number 2 company in all of Canada to work for. So there was 1.46 million companies in Canada. We ranked number 2. We were pissed off. This back company called the Back Doctor or something beat us, Mike. But where it started was when I got there in October of 2000, 6.5 years before, I said to Brian, the CEO, there's 3 things that we have to do to scale the company. Number 1, we have to turn the company into a cult. It has to be a little bit more than a business, a little bit less than a religion. It has to be in this zone of a cult. So we've got to hire culture people. They got to want to put logo. We had people permanently tattooing the logo on their body. We had 2 permanent tattoos of logos. So there's systems around the cult. The second thing was we have to raise our prices 40 to 50%. So that we can make a lot of money and our franchisees can make a lot of money and we can deliver the service that we want to promise. And then 3, we have to leverage free publicity because we have no money for advertising. But if we can get a lot of free press about the company, we can fuel that. We can really, really kind of get the flywheel going. So culture is not the free lunches and the free bicycles and the vacation time and the massages. That's not what culture is. Those are perks. Culture starts with alignment with vision. Mm. And I always tell the story about the 3 guys out making bricks. They asked the first guy, what are you doing? He said, I'm making bricks. Asked the second guy, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm building a wall and I get to make the bricks to build a wall. They asked the third guy, what are you doing? He said, well, I'm building a cathedral to worship God and we get to build the left wall of the cathedral and I'm making the bricks. So who has more meaning in their work? Well, it's the person making bricks, right? So what we have alignment with this vivid vision concept is number one. The second is alignment with core values and core purpose, right? It gives people meaning in their work and they know that they're not working with assholes. And so culture starts there. And then culture is all about the people. And Jim Collins talked about getting the right people on the bus, the wrong people off the bus, everyone in the right seats. It's an obsession around recruiting, interviewing, selection, training, hiring, onboarding, and getting rid of the wrong people as well. That's where culture really starts with. And then it's flipping the org chart upside down. So the CEO is at the bottom, supporting the VPs, supporting the frontline staff, supporting the clients. And you remove their obstacles and you coach them and grow them and cheer them on. And then you give them perks. Mm. So culture can be easily codified.
Yeah. Cameron, for some reason, I think in book titles. So I think my vote for next title of your book, Flip the Org Chart or something, which has to do all with culture. Hiring, talk about hiring. So like the base of that, the foundation of that is the recruiting and the hiring. What are some things that you found works in recruiting? It's tough too, like to sift through all these people.
It's not tough. So I'm really lucky because I worked years ago with a company called College Pro Painters. Mm-hmm. And College Pro is the largest residential house painting company in the world. And when I was on the senior executive team, there were 60 of us at the head office. I was in the top 30 people. We had to go out and recruit and hire 800 franchisees every year. Hmm. And then we had to teach those 800 franchisees how to go out and recruit and hire and train 8,000 painters.
No pressure.
Yeah. So imagine if your company had to hire 8,800 people every single year. You become operationally world-class at recruiting, interviewing, selection, training, and onboarding. So for me, I actually understand the simple systems to do it properly and quickly every time. So what most people do wrong, I'll give you some basics, is they have the hiring manager write the job posting, right? The head of IT is hiring an IT person, head of IT writes the job posting, or an HR person writes a job posting, or the head of sales writes a job posting. But none of them have been trained in copywriting. So the job postings read like shit. They don't attract anybody into the brand, right? So your job posting should be like a marketing piece. It should turn people away. And I have a job posting up right now because I'm hiring for sales. And I got a candidate who said back to me in an email, he said, "Fuck you," in all caps. I'm like, awesome. I've totally pissed some people off with my job posting. And
what was it that he said that to? What was it in the?
It was, I need you to, your next step is don't send me a resume. Your next step is send me a 1 to 3 minute video on why you want to work with this company. Please read my vivid vision first and put hire me in the subject line or we won't even talk to you. He's like, fuck you. I'm like, awesome. I'll miss you. I don't like, bye. And then I had another guy, he's like, I love this job posting. This is amazing. This is so great. And like the people that like it. So I polarize with the job
culture.
Posting, right? Yeah. Right. I only want the people who really want to be in our culture, who really want to work in that kind of crazy environment. So I talk about being ADD and bipolar in my job posting, and they get to work with me. Now, if that terrifies you, right? and if it sounds kind of cool, and then what I do is I won't read the resumes. I put them through a hoop. So right now I've got about 96 applications for the role. But I'm not going to actually look at the resumes right now until they go through the first hoop of sending me the video. So I have 132 active candidates. Of those active candidates, 8 have sent me a video. Well, most companies have read through 132 resumes. That's a lot of fucking time to waste when you don't even know if these people just spammed you.
Yeah.
Now what I'm doing is reading the resumes of the 8 people I got videos from. And the video allows me to screen them and go, yeah, no. In 3 minutes, your gut knows if somebody's the right culture fit or not.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But on paper, they can look really good. But the problem is if I set up a 1 hour or a half hour screening interview and I'm 6 minutes in and I go, oh, this is terrible, I'm not going to tell the person who's booked off a half hour that it's terrible at the 6 minute mark. So I wait till like 24 minutes or 25 minutes. Ugh, those are 25 minutes I'll never get back in my life, multiplied by all those people. You see what I'm saying?
Totally.
And then you start with the core behavior traits you're going to look for every role. So every role has a set of behavioral traits that are specific to the role. As an example, there's no salesperson who would ever make it through an HR screening process.
What do you say?
Well, because HR people are about policies and procedures and rules and dot the I's and cross the T's and be methodical and be thoughtful and be analytical, right? Very, very HR process. Salespeople, they make it up on the go. They're winging it. They shoot from the hip. They're high energy. They don't follow any of the rules. If somebody says no, at least you know where they are, so you can call them back when they're going to say maybe or yes, right? HR people hate salespeople. So if HR is ever involved in recruiting salespeople, you miss all the good sales candidates.
Totally.
So what it starts with is, what are the behavioral traits I'm looking for? And then what are the skills that you need to have? And have you done the work before? There used to be an adage years ago of hire for attitude, train for skill. That's awesome if you want to get 7% growth. But what I'm used to is the 26 to 100% growth per year. You know, at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, we grew 6 consecutive years of 100% revenue growth, 6 years in a row. You have to hire for attitude and skill set. Yeah. So like even when I came in as the COO, 1-800-GOT-JUNK was the third franchise company that I helped build. Everything I needed to do at 1-800-GOT-JUNK, I'd already done twice before. So it wasn't like I knew how to do it. I'd done it before. And most companies will hire people like, what kind of a leader are you? And they describe a good leader. Oh, he's a good leader. No, he's read a textbook on leadership. He's never led anybody in his life, right? What kind of a project manager are you? They read books on project management. Or how do you manage time? And they talk about time management. They don't manage their time that way. So I'm very big on the
being in the trenches and doing it.
Well, and interviewing them to find proof that they've actually done it before. Not that they know how to do it, but they've done it. And then the last layer is torque, which is the threat of reference check. And that's really getting in to find out more about them before you'd even really need to do a reference check.
Thank you for breaking that down. I'm going to have to listen to that a couple more times just to get it all, Cameron. But how do you choose your next book that you're going to be working on?
Well, it'll probably be the CEO-COO relationship, just because it's more closely tied to what I'm building with the COO Alliance. I also have another one, I'm calling it Grandmotherisms, and it'll be an easier one to pull out. It's all of the statements that our grandmothers used to tell us that are just so true. I should actually get a bunch from like the Jewish community, because you guys have all got them, and you've hold on to those stories for so long that, like the lore, right? Like don't put all your eggs in one basket. You know, anybody right now who was a pure play offline business with people coming to a location got fucked because of COVID-19, but they had all their eggs in one basket, right? So I'm going to have a book of these little grandmotherisms with the saying and then the lesson all on one page, and then a cool picture.
Love it. You know, we mentioned Sweet Process as a tool. I know there's other software and tools you like. Talk about the importance of Colby.
I love Colby. The Colby profile tests one core thing. It's how do you start or initiate projects? So when you hand a project to someone, they start it in one of 4 core ways. They either ask a lot of questions to start it, or they put systems or processes in to start it, like using Sweet Process, or they start it, or they put a model or get all the tools and implements together to start. So if you're looking for someone to run Sweet Process inside of a company, you want somebody who has a high second number, which is called follow through. They need the high follow through number in their Colby profile. Mine happens to be quite low. I'm a 4393. So I start things and plan later. But I also counter that with a high degree of OCD. And having built franchise companies, I think logically in optimization. So I can counter it a little bit, but most don't.
Is there a typical profile? Like, what would you say stereotypically being a COO? What's a typical Colby profile?
High first 2 numbers. So we have all of our COOs in the COO Alliance. We've done a Colby profile on them.
Yeah.
They all have a very high first 2 numbers. They're like 8732 or 7, 6, whatever. They're a high first two numbers. They're usually a low third, and then almost none of them tend to be a high modeler number. The implementer, the high fourth number, like engineers, contractors, construction people, architects. Entrepreneurs tend to be a high third number. They tend to start now, plan later.
So is that interesting that you're such a high third number?
Well, it is. And my entrepreneurship started by being a franchisee when I was a franchisee for 3 years. And I was so scared of screwing up because I was 20 years old and I had 12 employees. I was so nervous that I was going to screw up that I just followed the systems, and the systems worked. So the second year I learned more systems and I just did those. And the third year I did more systems. So because I learned entrepreneurship by following systems, I believe in those. But my profile is bang on. I've done my Colby 3 times and it always came out.
So would you say you think you've adapted so much over the years?
No,
how do you explain?
I don't like, I will break my own systems, break my own rules. I call it the diamond in the rough, right? I'm very much outcome over process, that if I see the outcome, I'm going to go for it. Like if I had all my stuff documented in Sweet Process, but like I knew that this was the right hire, I'm going to hire the person. I'm not going to just force it, because I'd be so worried somebody else is going to hire him before me that I'll break the system to go after the diamond in the rough.
Got it.
But you have to be able to trust your gut and your experience to know that that's there. But I'll default to putting a system in place and following a system.
What's Cameron, for you, a podcast like is a must listen to? When you think back, what's one of your favorite stories from one of the podcast episodes that you remember?
One of the favorite stories.
You had some really, really interesting people and companies featured.
From my Second in Command podcast?
Yeah.
There's a couple. I really liked one of my very first ones that I did with Harley Finkelstein, who is the COO for Shopify. I interviewed Harley 2 years ago. I've known their company since they were only 50 employees, and now I don't know what they're at, 15,000. So I knew them very early on.
Publicly traded, yeah.
Oh yeah, I've made a ton of money off that company. They're at like a $780 stock right now, and
wow.
I was in by 36. I sold out at 100. I bought back in at 200.
Wow. They're a Canadian company, right?
Yeah, they're from Ottawa.
Yeah.
In fact, my co-author of my book, Free PR, Adrian, Adrian was a client that I coached 12 years ago called Canvas Pop. Adrian is from Ottawa and is really good friends with Harley from Shopify. So I was in town coaching Canvas Pop, and Adrian asked me if I would do a speaking event at the Shopify office. And so I went in and spoke there, and there was like 50 people, and we did our little speaking event. We'll
just say the growth was due to that one talk that you gave. I'm just kidding. So Harley, what's another guest that you remember that people should check out?
I really enjoyed the CEO of Bumble, the dating app. And what I was really intrigued with what she told me was they were actually exploring a different side of the business, and it was BFF. It was the Bumble Friend Finder, I think is what they call it. And it was basically looking for friends, not for dating, not for romantic relationships.
Interesting.
But people are lonely, and people don't want to just be friends with all the people they work with. And then where are they going to meet other people? So Bumble has this friend component where it's a friend app where you can just go for hikes and hang out with friends and go to be friends. And it's huge in India right now. Huge in India. And I thought that was just a really intriguing idea. I said to her on the podcast, I think that will be bigger than Bumble itself when it catches.
I could see too, as people get older and they're savvy with technology, like older people want they want someone to talk to.
Well, they don't want so when you have kids, you start meeting other adults that are parents of you're staying at soccer practice, watching your kid play, or so you can, but where do you meet friends that actually like to do your activities? Like, I want to go, hiking this weekend, or I want to go geocache, or I want to go play tennis, or I want to go, watch a movie. I started a movie club online just to hang out with people and talk about movies. But,
Totally.
Yeah.
Cameron, what about, I love people. What's that? Go ahead.
Here's what I really like about the Second in Command podcast that's so different. Everyone interviews the entrepreneur. And it would be like calling my dad or my mom and saying, how did you raise your kids? They would have a very true story. My mom would have a very true story. But if you ask my dad, how did you raise the kids? And even though they were together their whole lives, my dad's story would be very different from my mom's story. But so when we interviewed the COO, I get the rest of the story, right? Everyone interviewed Brian at 1-800-GOT-JUNK. And if you hear my story of how we built the company, it's different from Brian's. They're both very true. Yeah.
Who do you want to have on that you haven't had on, or company-wise?
I just actually reached out to a couple of PR firms that focus on the technology sector. And so I would love to have Sheryl Sandberg. That would be because she's kind of the queen bee or the king of the second in command. She's the COO for Facebook.
Yep.
That would be the one I would like right now. Adam Grant, who I know from TED, has just introduced me to her, but that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Well, if anyone could get someone, you can. So I have no doubt you will. Last question, Cameron, and before I ask it, where should we point people towards? Obviously, COOalliance.com. Anywhere else we should point people towards online?
Sure. All of my books are available on Amazon, Audible, and iTunes. The one big book that we didn't cover, but everyone should buy the book Meetings Suck, but not just for them, but every employee at every company should read Meetings Suck. When Elon Musk came out a year ago and said something to the effect of, if you're in a shitty meeting, stand up and leave the meeting. And I was a reference for Elon in his first round of funding in January of 95. So I sent him a text and I said, don't tell your employees to leave shitty meetings, fix the meetings so that they're not. But if you've never trained your employees on how to run a meeting, or you've never trained them how to attend them, so everyone should that's a core one.
Nice. I love it. I've listened to it. Fantastic. So check out the podcast, check out COO Alliance. I figured, people like the sexy topics, like even though the fundamental topics like hiring, interviewing, recruiting, running the meeting, those things are the non-sexy things. So I figured we end with the sexy thing, like the free PR, very sexy. A favorite free PR story?
Wow, favorite free PR. Well, there's the Oprah story for sure, right? How we got on Oprah.
You can talk about that.
Yeah, I'd say the favorite though is Tyler walked into my office one day and he said, the Vancouver Canucks just got into the playoffs for the NHL hockey. Why don't we wear blue wigs and stand out on the street and wave at traffic and cheer on the Vancouver Canucks? And let's get our whole city supporting the Canucks, and we'll challenge other companies to do the same. And I'm like, that's dumb. And he goes, no, I can make it happen. So we're like, fine, whatever. So Tyler starts calling the media. And about 4 hours later, he comes in and he goes, this TV station is coming to film us tomorrow morning at noon. And I'm like, about what? And he goes, the blue wig thing. So we went out to these shops and we bought some blue wigs. We brought them in. We're all wearing blue wigs. We give them to one of our trucks. They're wearing blue. And then Tyler in the interview says that we're going to give out 1,000 blue wigs on the first game day. Okay, so where are we going to fucking get 1,000 blue wigs? He goes, no, you're the how guy. So we got 1,000 blue wigs brought in from Toronto and Philly. We gave away 1,000 blue wigs. We put them on people and said, do you promise to wear this the whole game? Yep. Blue wig power. We put it on their head. And we ended up with 1,000 people wearing them. We had 5 live TV station remotes at the same time, ended up in the newspaper. It continued to happen over the whole series. We got 67 media articles about our company. Wow. And then they lost in the first round. But we ended up buying more wigs that we were selling and giving away the profits to charity. So we had 10 cases of blue wigs, 2,500 wigs left. We shipped them all to Toronto because the Toronto Maple Leafs had made it into the second round. And we recreated it in Toronto and got another 43 stories in Toronto in round 2. So 110 stories in a 1 month period, all about stuff that we had no rights to be attached to. That was pretty cool.
Be creative. That just means to figure out how they did that and some of the processes, you have to get the book, so.
Yeah, I give it all away in the book too. Like I really give the step-by-step instructions.
It's very, not only you see the whole vision behind it, but you see the tactical things. So check out Free PR book. Cameron, it's always a pleasure. Thank you. Check out everything he has with the book, from the books to the podcast to the website, COO Alliance. Thanks again, Cameron.
Thanks, Jeremy. Great seeing you. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of Suite Process. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to sweetprocess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.